So there are many mitzvahs of chesed that we're commanded to do. The mitzvah of many we've read throughout this parish, the next parishes. The mitzvah of Bikar Cholim. We see Abraham went to visit. Hashem visited Abraham. We had the mitzvah of Hachnasas Archam, entertaining guests. We have this week we're going to deal with Kfura, Nicham Avelim. So we know it's a good thing to do chesed. So we're all in the same camp. And choosing good from bad is an easy decision. It's an easy intellectual decision. It might not, doesn't mean we're always going to follow what we should do, but at least usually we know right from wrong. And even if we're going to do something wrong, we know we shouldn't, but we have a taiva, desire, whatever the reasons are, we make mistakes, or we're nechshel. But so choosing good from bad is generally a good thing, an easy thing to make. Let's go see, should I help this person cross the street, or should I punch him in the face? So I know what we should do. Whether we do it or not, it's up to us. But choosing good from good, that's a lot harder. When you have two good things in front of you, it's much harder. That's what Rav Selevan used to always say. That it's easy. We do every Motzai Shabbos, Hamavdil ben Kodesh v'chol. It's simple. We know Shabbos is Kodesh, Sunday is Chol. But when from Yantif to Shabbos, Shabbos to Yantif, Hamavdil ben Kodesh v'Kodesh, there are many different levels of Kedusha, and then we have to know how to balance the different levels of Kedusha. So the question is, if you have different mitzvahs in front of you, and so in terms of precedence, which mitzvah should come first? So for instance, the Rambam raises the question, not just the Rambam, another Rishonim. Let's say you have the mitzvah of Bikar Cholim versus the mitzvah of Nicham Avelim. You have a choice to do Nicham Avelim, comfort the mourner, or Bikar Cholim. Which one takes precedence? So the Rambam writes, interesting language in Hilchas Avel, Yira'el li, it appears to me. And that means the Rambam, that's what the Mefarshim explained the Rambam, many times he writes Yira'el li, he couldn't find an explicit Gemara, but based on all my knowledge of Shas and everything else, this is my conclusion. So the Rambam is saying, it appears to me, meaning maybe it's a chiddush to him or not, it appears to me that Nicham Avelim beats out Bikar Cholim. If you have a choice, you have to do one, or at least which one do you do first? So do you do Nicham Avelim? You have 15 minutes for each one, and you're going to do both. Which one do you do first? So he says Nicham Avelim beats out Bikar Cholim. The question is why? So obviously, in the case of the Radvazias and the Rambam, what are you talking about? That Nicham Avelim beats Bikar Cholim. Bikar Cholim could be a case of Pikuach Nefesh. That what does it mean? Like, because Bikar Cholim involves taking care of the need of the physical needs of the patient, and not only that, but psychologically speaking, that if a person, if a person's very depressed and he's not doing well and no one comes to visit, that could be the thing that tips it over. So obviously, we're not talking about a case of Pikuach Nefesh. If it's Pikuach Nefesh, then clearly Bikar Cholim would win. The Rambam is talking about a case where it's not, the Cholok could wait a half an hour till you come. It's not going to make a difference whether you come at 6 o'clock or 6:30. So the Rambam writes, if there's no time issue, like a Pikuach Nefesh, a real pressing issue, all things being equal, you do Nicham Avelim first. Why should Nicham Avelim beat out Bikar Cholim? So the Rambam says, because Nicham Avelim is a double kindness. It's a chesed im achai, v'chesed im ames. It's a chesed for the living, and it's a chesed for the dead. Well, Bikar Cholim, that's only a chesed im achai. So the double kindness of Nicham Avelim beats out the single kindness of Bikar Cholim. Where does the Rambam get that Nicham Avelim is a double kindness? Well, that is chesed im achai, we all know, because when we do Nicham Avelim, we say Hamakam, the people there, so we know it's definitely chesed im achai. Where does the Rambam know it's a chesed im ames? So that, based on a Gemara at the end of Shabbos, Kufnun Beis, the Gemara talks about someone dies, Misha Meis, ve'ein lo menachamim. When someone dies and he has no Avelim, there's no one there. So what does the Gemara say to do? You gather 10 people together, you go to their house, you do a Nicham Avelim, you daven in the house, you do a Nicham Avelim. So the Meiri writes that based on this Gemara, Zuhi Chesed Imamei. So we see from this Gemara that Nicham Avelim not only is a Chesed Imachai, but it's a Chesed B'Stafka go when no one, even if there's no one there is no Avel. You go to the Nifter's home and you do Nicham Avelim. So perhaps this is the source of the Rambam as well, and that's what the Rambam paskins in Hilchas Avel. Nicham Avelim Kodem Bikar Cholam. That's the Gemara that's the Rambam in Hilchas Avel. Comes along, the problem is the Rambam seems to be against the Gemara in Sukkah. Again, so if you're a real brisker, it's a kasha on the Gemara. But for everyone else, it's a kasha on the Rambam. How could the Rambam go against the Gemara? What does the Gemara say? The Rambam says, the Gemara says in Sukkah as follows. There was a case of Anshe Yerushalayim, the Hasidim of Anshe Maisa. We know there's a mitzvah on Lula Mida'ag Bei Nafikle, that you have a mitzvah of Dalamina. When you pick it up, you fulfill your mitzvah. We have a mitzvah of Dalamina. We usually, Ma'ikar Din, you pick it up, make the bracha and shake it. That's enough. Alaminig is we also do it during Hallel and during other places, Hoshanas. The Anshe Yerushalayim used to walk around all day with the Lulav and Esrog. In fact, it's interesting, Rashi there, when it says, how you have of mitzvahs harbe, so it says they were holding the Lulav, which they had the Lulav and the Tefillin. This Rashi is a raya for the Minhag Ashkenaz of wearing Tefillin on Chol Hamoed. That's a separate discussion, because when else would you be wearing Tefillin and doing Lulav? It must have been Chol Hamoed. But either way, so the Gemara says they used to walk around shaking the Lulavim all day. And then it says and what did they do? And then they did mitzvahs all day. They did the mitzvah of Bikar Cholam and the mitzvah of Nicham Avelim. So the Gemara says, and the order is, and they used to do Bikar Cholam first, and then Ve'achar Kach Nicham Avelim. So for the Gemara in Sukkah, when the Rambam said they couldn't find the Gemara, I found the Gemara. What do you mean? It's an explicit Gemara. What do you mean the Rambam? And then not only did he find the Gemara, maybe that's why he said there was no Gemara. So he wasn't going to quote a Gemara and then say the opposite. So what's pshat in the Rambam? He obviously knew the Gemara. He knew the Gemara, and the Gemara said the opposite. So what do you mean Yira Eli? And in fact, the Rush has a Gersa, and others that no, they have a different gear. Our Gemara, if you open up a Sukkah, Dav Memalaf, it's going to be our Gersa. It says Bikar Cholam, then Nicham Avelim. But the Rush had another Gersa, like the way the Rambam was saying, it's Nicham Avelim, and then Nicham Avelim, and then Bikar Cholam. So the question is, So a bishkoma, if the Rambam had this gear, it would be okay. But the Rambam, when he quotes this halach in Hilchot Lulav, he writes it the way we have it, not the way the Rosh has. When he quotes the Rambam in Hilchot Lulav, writes the Anshe Yerushalayim, they did Bikar Cholim, then Nicham Avelim. Did something happen with the camera? I heard some beeping.
No, that was my watch.
Okay. Okay, so with modern technology you can't keep up anymore. Soon that will be the phone soon when the Apple comes out, or they have the Swatch now, whatever it is. So either way, so we have an apparent contradiction in the Rambam. The Rambam, so clearly he knew the Gemara in Sukkah. The Rambam, when in Hilchot Lulav, writes Bikar Cholim and then Nicham Avelim. What happened to the double kindness? And in Hilchos Avelos he writes first Nicham Avelim and then Bikar Cholam. So how do we reconcile? How do we answer up the Rambam? So we need some background info, then we answer up the Rambam. So we know there's a halacha of the Gemara in Moed Katan tells us there's no Avelis on Yantif. A Gemara in Moed Katan Daf Yudalei Amabei, it's a whole share in its own right. We're not going into now. Machlokas Rambam and the Balei Tosfos, exactly what's the Raisa, what's the Rabbanan. But the Gemara says there's no Avelis on Yantif. Why? Because the public mitzvah of Simcha beats out the private mitzvah of Avelis. In other words, I had a chassan here, and I said, so he was surprised when I was telling him, yeah, no one said. He says, I know, I didn't say Tachanan. I didn't know no one says Tachanan. I said, yeah, it's a good point you're making, because let's say an Avel doesn't have a minyan in his house and he has to come to shul. So does the shul say, because in the house of an Avel you don't say Tachlis for a totally different reason. It's a time it's in, but it's the bottom line is the same, but for a totally different reason. It's not a simcha. But for a chasan, we don't say tachanan because it's a simcha. And a beis Avel, we don't say tachanan either. So let's say if a chasan comes to shul, no one says tachanan. If an Avel comes to shul, the halacha is the Avel doesn't say tachanan, but everyone else does. What's the pshat? Because this issue, because the mitzvah simchas yantiv, and i.e. in this case simchas chasam v'kala, that's a public simcha. That's why the minhag is to give a chasan an aliyah during Sheva Brachas, because what's the ultimate simcha? Teaching Torah b'rabim. And therefore, when he gets the aliyah, he's doing a public Talmud Torah. He's teaching us, even today we have a Baal Kori, a designated reader, but that was the takana. So therefore, we have. So there's a din of public mitzvah of simcha beats out the private mitzvah of avelos. That's the Gemara. So the question is, it's a machlokas, the Rambam versus the Rush. What does it mean, no avelos on Yantiv? So the Rambam says, kipshuto, no avelos on Yantiv means no avelos on Yantiv. No avelos at all, private or public, farhersi or b'tzina. And the rest is no avelos b'yantiv, there's no public mourning on Yantiv. But of course there is avelos b'tzina. On Shabbos everyone agrees there's private mourning, not public mourning. The machlokas rishonim is regarding Yantiv. Rambam says there's nothing, and the Rush writes no, there is mourning, but only private. So Rav Soloveitchik said, what's the nekudas hamachlokas here? What's the issue between the Rambam and the Rush? Whether we have private mourning on Yantif or not. Like, what's the issue? So the Rav pointed out, the question is, can you have nihuge avelis, can you have actual manifestation of avelis, i.e. sitting on a low chair, covering the mirrors in your house, without the minyan shiva? In other words, we all know, let's say someone dies on Yantif, so me'ikr din hagamara, you died on Yantif, so on Yantif Rishon you could do a kfura al yidei amim, sugayim. On Yantif Sheni, afil al yidei Yisrael. How come we don't do it today? Some do. Some Hasidim, broyers, and some they do it on Yantif Sheni. But why is Alam in Ignatu? That's a landmark tshuva of Moshe Feinstein, because he says it's going to cause more harm than gain, because it's only the people who are chayiv and the crew are allowed to go. There's going to end up being a lot of chilul Yantif by non-people, people who aren't allowed to go, and therefore the minig North America is that we don't do any kfura at all. So what do we do? So on Chol Hamoed, so what do we do on Chol Hamoed? We have we do the kfura. So that's what we do. So a kover b'yantiv, but everyone agrees Avelos doesn't begin until after Yantiv's over in the Shiva. So the question is, can you separate the minyan Shiva from the Nehuga Avelos? In other words, so the Rambam saying on Yantiv, if there's no Avelos, if it's not going to be a minyan Shiva, then there's nothing. There's no Nehuga Avelos. The rest says no, you can still have a mixus Avelos without. He says, where do we find this? He says, there's a machlokas, the Rush, the Ramban versus the Rambam, is, we all know, after the Kfura, after the Stima Sagola, you start counting Shiva when you go home. What about, we know there's a concept of an onain. Between the death and the burial, a person is an onain, and he's patur min mitzvahs, he has to focus on the kever. So when does the din Avelos begin? So the Rambam writes, the halachas of Avelos don't begin until after the burial. When the minyan Shiva begins, that's when the Avelos begins. And the Ramban goes like the Rush, and no. Avelos begins right away. What about leaving your house and all that? No, so anything that you need to take care of the kever, the kfura, you're allowed to do. But ultimately, the Avelos begin. So we see, the Rush holds you can have the Hugi Avelos, even though the Shiva doesn't begin, and the Rambam holds no. So therefore, the Rambam holds that you can't, on Yantiv, since there is no, it's not Olu Minyan Shiva, therefore you can't have, you can't coexist any Avelos. And the Rush holds no, you can't have a mixes avelos, even if you're not counting. So comes along Rav Zolti, in the Mishnah Yaivis, one of the chief rabbis in Eretz Yisrael years ago. He has a kasha. He says, the Mishnah says in Moed Katan, I think Chav Zayin, Chav Tes, not only is there a mitzvah of nicham avelim on Shabbos, according to everyone there could be nicham avelim, because according to everyone there's avelos b'tzina. So I understand nicham avelim, but the Mishnah says there's also nicham avelim on Yantif. So the result, he writes, Bishlomo to the Rush, who says you have avelos b'tzina on Yantiv. I understand nicham avelim, but according to the Rambam, that there's no avelos at all on Yantif. So how could there be a concept of nicham avelim? So he answers as follows, and with this we'll reconcile the apparent contradiction in the Rambam. That he says, so what's the pshat? How could you have nicham avelim? So he says, when the Gemara says in Moed Katan we have nicham avelim on Yantif, it's not the classic nicham avelim that we have with the Chayim. It's only the second halacha of chesed im ameis. It's only the din of mishein lo menachem, and it's the din of chesed im ameis we have on Yantiv. It's not the classical nicham avelim we have during the week, which is both. So he says like this. He says, according to the Rush, there's no difference ben b'chol, ben b'yantif, because nicham avelim, it's the classical nicham avelim you have all the time, because it's not a kasha. But according to the Rambam, who holds there's no avelos and yantif, so therefore the Rambam has to hold, and the Mishnah says there is a nicham avelim, the Rambam will have to say it's only the nicham avelim on the mace, it's not the classic. So he says, with this we can explain, what was the Rush's girsa in Sukkah? The Rush kept the girsa on. The Rush's girsa was on Yantif, also on Anshe Yushalayim. They did nicham avelim and then bikar cholim. Why? And the Rambam had the other girsa the way we have, that he switched it around. So what's the Rush who holds that you have avelos b'tzina on Yantif, so therefore you have nicham avelim for the chesed im achai, the chesed im ameis, that applies ben b'chol ben yantiv. So there's no difference in the halacha between yantiv and b'chol. But the Rambam, there's a big difference. So therefore the Rambam in Hilchos Avel, when he's talking during the week, so what does he write? Nicham avelim kodem l'bikar cholim. Why? Because it's a double kindness. It's a chesed im achai, the chesed im ameis. But what about in Hilchos Lulav? He's clearly talking about on yantiv. So all you have is a nicham avelim im hamesim. So based on the Gemara in Suvis tells us, what if you only have chesed im achai versus chesed im hameis? Then what wins? Chesed im achai wins. So that's the Rambam. On Yantiv, you only have a chesed im hameis for nicham avelim. So then bikar cholim wins because chesed im achai beats out chesed im hameis. But during the week, when you have a double kindness of nicham avelim, so therefore that's why you nicham. So that's the pshat in the Rambam. In Hilchos Avel, which is b'chol, he says nicham avelim kodem bikar cholim because of the double kindness. But in Hilchos Lulav, he writes it's only bikar cholim beats out nicham avelim because it's only chesed im achai versus chesed im hameis, and when you only have one versus one, so chesed im achai wins out. So the past couple of weeks we're discussing the different mitzvahs of hachnasas archim, the mitzvah of entertaining guests that Avram was especially known for, and as well Hashem and Avram bikar cholim, visiting the sick. This coming week in Chayei Sarah, we'll be discussing the mitzvah of Kvura and eulogies, nicham avelim. So there's a famous question among the Mefarshim, among the Rishonim, Achronim, and it's a question in general where we'll focus on bikar cholim and extend to others as well. Is the Gemara tells us in Psachim and Dav Zayin, the Gemara tells us that before one does a mitzvah over Lasiyas, and before you do it, we make a bracha. There's a whole discussion. What is the text of the bracha? Some brachas you have the nusach of al. Some have the nusach of lamed. The Gemara goes into Rambam and Hilchos Brachas, gives us the principle when sometimes you make an al and sometimes a la.
Is this Gemara Brachas?
It's Gemara. No, it's the Gemara in Psachim, but it's the Rambam in Hilchos Brachos.
Oh, okay.
But the Gemara in Brachos does touch on it, but the Sugya is in Psachim. So, for all you Daf Yomi people, I'm sure you're familiar with it, as we're... Don't worry, they're at the end, and this is at the beginning. So they point out that, and in fact, and sometimes, it's like law is when you make the bracha beforehand, so you do law. When you make the bracha afterwards, like the Vilna Gaon writes, by the mitzvah of the four species, the dalaminim, we make al netilas lulav. Why? Because the Gemara says, mida'ag bei nafikle, that once you pick them up, you already fulfill the mitzvah. We do many things. We try to circumvent it. We turn the esrog over. Different people don't pick it up. But the bottom line, the Vilna Gaon says, it really doesn't work. We're not doing it over lasiyasan. We're doing it achar, and therefore hence the bracha al. And of course, there's certain exceptions to the rule where it's impossible to do it before. The classic case the Gemara gives is the case of gerus. Someone wants to convert to Judaism, so you go to the mikveh first. So you can't make the bracha before you go to the mikveh because you're not Jewish yet. So that's a classic case. It's an exception where you have to make the bracha afterwards. So generally, that's the whole sugya in Pesach. But what's clear is, before or perhaps sometimes after or sometimes during, you will make a bracha. Bracha is always associated with a mitzvah. So the question is, by the Rishonim, Achronim, let's say Bikar Cholim, Haknasas Archim, where's the bracha? In fact, the Rambam writes in Hilchos Avel, he talks about all these mitzvahs are based on the pasuk of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, implying they're all biblical. And then right afterwards he says, he uses the words B'divrei Sofrim. So it's a whole discussion in the Rambam and other Rishonim, whether it's a mitzvah daraisa, a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Some call it a super mitzvah. It's not even it's like one of the yisodas of Judaism. But it's clear, if you do Bikar Cholam, you get a fulfillment of a mitzvah in Torah. You do Haknasas Archim, you get a fulfillment of a mitzvah daraisa. So it's clearly, at worst case, it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, and yet we all know the Chazal instituted brachas not only on biblical mitzvahs. We make brachas on rabbinical mitzvahs all the time. On Chanukah we make a bracha, Purim, etc. And in fact, we even make brachas on minhagim. There's different minhagim among Ashkenaz Sfarad on which minhagim you do, which you don't. But we assume you make a bracha on minhagim, i.e. Hallel on Rosh Chodesh. We do a Chatzi Hallel on Rosh Chodesh. That's definitely a minhag according to everybody. And we make a bracha. So the question is, if Haknasas Archim and Bikar probably a mitzvah daraisa, definitely a kiyam daraisa, perhaps even a chiyav daraisa, so how come we don't make a bracha before we do these mitzvahs? So there's a famous answer of the Or Zarua, one of the Rishonim. He points out as follows. He has a general rule on a continuous mitzvah, on a mitzvah tamidis, a mitzvah that applies 24/7, so therefore you don't make a bracha. How come? He says because you're lacking the chavivis. That in general, even though when you do a mitzvah, it's supposed to be exciting. So that's why, in fact, we have a custom during the month of Elul that we blow shofar. That's only a custom. That's a pure minhag, no bracha. No one makes a bracha on blowing the shofar during the month of Elul. On Rosh Hashanah, we make a bracha. So the minhag is, on Erev Rosh Hashanah, we stop blowing shofar. We take a break. There are many reasons why. One is to be mafsik, then to know the distinction between a biblical commandment and a custom, so we take a break. But others point out is, since you're going to be making a bracha, it has to be chaviv. You have to have some type of an excitement, so therefore we take a break on Erev Rosh Hashanah. So therefore when you make the bracha, you'll have the appropriate excitement when you do the mitzvah of shofar. And for Shechiyanu is even a higher level. That for Shechiyanu also needs a chaviv. That's even higher than a regular birkas HaMitzvah. You even need a higher level of chiv. That's why Shechiyanu was only set up on mitzvahs which happen once in a while. Brachas are set up for every day, but you still need a certain level of excitement. So since all these things, Bikar Cholim, Haknasas Archim, Nicham, are all continuous mitzvahs that can be done all the time, Chazal never instituted a bracha. I know you're all bothered by What are we doing now? At least what are some of us doing now?
Limud Torah.
Limud Torah. And we have a bracha of Birkas HaTorah. Some hopefully have made that already. Maybe all hopefully have made it, yeah? But we make a Birkas HaTorah every morning. That's a continuous mitzvah. So how come it seems to go against the principle of the Or Zarua? The Or Zarua says on a continuous mitzvah, we don't make a bracha. Yeah, we know on Talmud Torah, we make a Birkas HaTorah every morning, whether men and women are obligated in the mitzvah of Birkas HaTorah. So one could answer, based on the Ramban, that what is the nature of the bracha of Birkas HaTorah? The famous Ramban writes, it's a Birkas Shevach V'Hodah. But it's not a mitzvah on Talmud Torah. We're thanking God that He gave the Jewish people the Torah. That's how they explain. That's why women are also chayav. Even though they might be technically putter from Limud Torah per se, but they were given the Torah as well. And that's why women are obligated in Birkas HaTorah as much as men. So if you hold it's a Birkas Shavach, so therefore it's totally different than the question of a Birkas HaMitzvah. Well, let's assume it is a Birkas HaMitzvah, like many do assume, like the Vilna Gaon. So how do we explain? So that you could say, perhaps we could suggest, based on the Meduyuk in the language of the Or Zarua, he says, because you need chavivas, it has to be chaviv to you. So we have a general rule in the Gemara, mitzvahs lav lahanos nitnu. When we do mitzvahs, they're not for our benefit. For instance, the Gemara tells us, Chazal tell us, someone makes a neder, say, I'm not going to get benefit from Mr. X. And he happens to be the one blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. He's the Baal Tefillah. So the halacha is you're allowed to go to the shore, get benefit, because mitzvahs lav lahanos nitnu. But if you say you're not going to get benefit from Mr. X, and then you want to borrow his sefer, or you want to go to the person's shir, then you can't. Why? Because as the Taz points out in many places in the Meiri, because even though mitzvahs lav lahanos nitnu, Talmud Torah lahanos didn't do. The purpose of Talmud Torah is different than all mitzvahs. Like other mitzvahs is you do them because kaksiva Hashem. You shake the dalaminim, you eat the matzah, even if there is no specific hana. The Talmud Torah, the highest level of Talmud Torah, is to get the benefit. Like the Iglei Tal writes in the beginning of his Sefer, people have this mistaken thing about Amelis Batorah. Is, you know what, I'll spend my whole day going to the bookshelf looking up, well, do you even know what a jastro is? That was like the old dictionary. Now we have Art Scroll. It's easy. And you spend your time looking at all that. So, obviously there is some Amelis in that. But the purpose of Talmud Torah is lahana, is to get to hana. And like Avram knew the secret, lech lecha, he never would have been successful. So as the Vilna Gaon used to say, if you learn Torah like you're shaking your lulav, you're never going to be successful in learning. By learning b'dafka, you have to do something. That's why when you learn, you pick something that's enjoyable to you, because the whole purpose, the highest level of Talmud Torah is to get to hana. That's why you're all here at the shir. That's why you're here for the coffee. Don't learn like maybe you should like you're drinking the coffee. That's how you should be learning. It's only here for the coffee. So either way, so perhaps that's what we could suggest here. Talmud Torah, you'd always have the chiva by Talmud. Every day is new. And therefore, even though normally we say on a mitzvah tamidis, you can't make a bracha because you don't have that hana. But by Talmud Torah is different, and therefore we make a birkas Torah every day. So that's the Or Zarua's answer. We don't have a bracha on hachnas zarcham, bikachom, etc., because that's a mitzvah tamidis, and therefore we don't have the necessary chiva in order to make a bracha. So therefore Chazal never instituted a bracha. Others suggest is the famous answer of the Rashba. He's talking about the mitzvah of tzedakah specifically, but applies in general to all these mitzvahs. The tzedakah is a mitzvah min Torah, so where's the bracha? So the famous answer, the Rashba, different ways of learning the Rashba, but the Rashba learns that since it's a mitzvah that's dependent on someone else, that even though it doesn't happen that often, but an ani can refuse to accept the tzedakah. He comes to your door, you offer him a couple of dollars, he throws it back. $2? Are you kidding me? I came all the way from Israel. I need at least a couple of hundred. So in theory it can happen. So therefore the Rashba writes that since the ani might not accept the money, so I'm going to make the bracha. The ani is not going to take it. It'll be a bracha levatala. So therefore any mitzvah that's dependent on someone else, so therefore you don't make a bracha. In fact, that's the famous machlokes Rishonim we have by Birkas Erison, that at a wedding we make a bracha under the chuppah, then you make the borer pri hagafen, and you make the bracha on the kedushin. It's the whole special bracha. And so there's a whole discussion among the Rishonim, what is the nature of that bracha? In other words, the whole discussion, is kedushin a mitzvah? Is marriage per se a mitzvah? Or no, marriage per se isn't a mitzvah. The whole reason why you get married is so for pruruvu, you can have kids, as the Rush writes. That's a machlokes Rishonim, whether marriage, everyone agrees you have to get married to have kids, but it's a technical machlokes whether marriage itself is the mitzvah or pruruvu is the mitzvah. So it's a machlokes, the Rambam and the Rush. The Rambam holds kedushin itself is a mitzvah, and the Rush holds pruruvu. So therefore, the Rush who holds there is no mitzvah of kedushin per se. He says it's a berka shavach v'olda. That's why it's not the classical Lashon mitzvah's kedushin. You have a whole long text talking about also what is harusa. It's a whole. It's not the normative text because it's a berka shavach v'olda. The Rambam holds it is a berka kedushin, and so it's a machlokes the Rush and the Rambam. My nafka mina. When do you make the bracha? According to the Rambam, you make the bracha before the kedushin, like every other birkas hamitzvah. And the Rush says you can make it after the marriage because it's on the institution of marriage. The Rabbi has a middle shita. He agrees with the Rush and the Rambam. How can he agree with both? He agrees with the Rambam. It's a birkas hamitzvah, but he agrees with the Rush. You make it afterwards. How could you have both? The Rush makes sense. If you hold it to Birkas HaShavach, you make it after. If you hold it to Birkas HaMitzvah, you make it before. Why would the Ravid say it's a Birkas HaMitzvah, you make it after? So the Ravid has the same principle because it's a mitzvah, it's totally on someone else. You never know. The woman might say, under the chuppah, I'm not interested. So therefore, you'll end up making the bracha. And therefore, he says to make the bracha after she accepted. But either way, it's the same klal as the Rambam, as the Rashba. So all these mitzvahs of Gomilas Chasadim, you need two. In other words, someone wants to do Bikar Cholim, and he says, "I'm sorry, now's not a good time," or "I don't want you," or like the some Rishonim say, you shouldn't go ahead. And certain people you shouldn't do Bikar Cholim on, but we'll get to. So either way, that's the klal of the Rashba. That any mitzvah, all these mitzvahs of Chachnos Zarchim, Tzedakah, are all totally b'das acheir. Hence, Chazal never instituted a bracha. A3, because the Mefarshim tell us another klal is we only make a bracha on something which is clear and you're doing it because kach siva Hashem. However, a mitzvah sichlis, a common sense halacha that everyone would do, it's not limited to Jewish people, but anyone could figure out on their own. Therefore, Chazal, I could have made the opposite argument in saying those are the ones you specifically should make a bracha to show you doing it, but that's not the way it goes. But some do suggest the way, but that's not the way the Gemara seems to say it. And the Mefarshim say, so therefore, a mitzvah sichel, which is not recognizable, you're doing like the mitzvah to appoint a king, or hachnas zarchem, everyone does it. So therefore, it's not recognizable, you're doing a mitzvah, so therefore Chazal, having a Suda Shabbos, everyone eats, so many examples. So therefore, on any mitzvah sichlis, Chazal said, no bracha, because it's not recognizable, you're doing a mitzvah. A4. So the Mefarshim give us a fourth answer. Any mitzvah that has to do with kilkul, any mitzvah that has to do with not the best things happening. In other words, you show up in the hospital and this person's like dying, whatever, he's in tremendous pain. Oh, great! Great to see you, Bara. You're so happy. You're making the bracha, and this guy's like suffering in pain. Or as Chazal tell us, many say you shouldn't go visit a sonne in the hospital. Not that you have any, but if you have any enemies, because it looks like you're gloating. Oh, great, how you doing? He missed you. How's your arm doing? So therefore, any time, let's say that's why some say also Hashavas Aveda. Someone just lost all this money, you're returning it, then obviously when you're returning it, he'll be happy, but at the time the mitzvah is when you pick it up. So therefore, how could you make a bracha on someone else's suffering? So therefore, and we have that throughout. That's why we don't make a bracha, we don't, when we're reading the Tochacha, we don't split up the Tochacha because because we don't want to add another bracha on Prinia. So we have a klal in general, and that's why some say no bracha on the mitzvah of tshuva. Because if you're doing tshuva, you must have done something wrong.
What about Milah?
So yes, so Mila. That's why. So Mila.
We shouldn't say bracha.
No, that's why. No, that's why Mila. We don't make a. That's why Ashkenaz. That's Machokas Ash. That's why we don't make a Shechiyanu Amila.
Oh.
So that's enough. That it's not enough because we can't have Simcha. We don't want to say it because, but it's enough. And that's the question: how much suffering, what the cousin actually feels at that time. It's a discussion whether he's crying because everyone, all these crazy people are looking at him and taking pictures. Or
why? Because they're cutting off.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Oh, Moshe told you.
Yeah.
At A5 is the famous answer of the Rambam. He has a general klal that Chazal only instituted brachas in general on a mitzvah bet Adam lamakom. But on mitzvahs Adam Chavero, Chazal never into the brachas because, let's say for instance, you knock on someone's door, I'm hungry, I need food. I say, oh great. So you go into the kitchen, you get the food ready, you say 1 second, Baruch, Ata, and the time you give him the food, the guy faints or from starvation. So anytime a bracha is going to interfere with the mitzvah, I have to go save the person drowning. The time you make the bracha, you're losing. So Chazal would never interfere with the mitzvah. If the mitzvah is to do something as soon as possible or to take someone out of pain, they wouldn't tell you to make a bracha in the interim. So any be'adam chavero, Chazal never instituted a bracha. So let's summarize the 5 answers. So we had the Or Zarua. We don't make a bracha on a mitzvah to meet it. Talmud Torah. Talmud Torah lahanos. We always have the chiva, but therefore it's always warrants a bracha. A2, we had the Rashba. We don't make a bracha on something which is dependent on others. Every chesed is dependent on at least one other person, and therefore they might not want it at the time, or you might think you're doing nama chesed, but they don't want you around. A3, mitzvah sichlis. We don't make brachas on mitzvah sichlis. A4, any mitzvah ayidei kilkula nicham avelun kfura. Everyone wants to rather still than be alive in most cases. Therefore, bikar cholim. Therefore, we don't want to look like you're gloating or you're making a bracha on someone else's expense. And A5, the Rambam, we only make brachas on mitzvahs be'adam lamakom, but on chavero, Chazal were very sensitive to interfere with a moment of pain or saving someone or someone starving. So therefore, anytime a bracha is going to interfere with the kiyam ha-mitzvah and prolong it, so therefore we say do the mitzvah right away and no bracha.